lights down low. Time for blood to flow. Those and ghouls, you know what we mean. We're all the terror that makes you scream. Some movies creep, some make you leap. There's killer plants or blobs. We cover them all on your favorite pod. So many horrors we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Because the call is coming from inside the room. Life ends pretty fast. Some screams fade, but some chills will last. The killers stalk and then they slash. It's the 30-something movie podcast. The clock rings out the midnight chimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep. And if you're in space, they can't hear you scream.
It is the 30-something movie podcast. It is October. It is Pat's least favorite month. No, I should stop saying that. You've actually, we're very proud of you, Pat. You've learned, you've grown.
Well, I thank you for the compliments. I love it. It's been some great movies, and I got to be honest, John, I really love our October theme song. I can't remember if I said it on the air, but it's like, I feel like it's like done by Henry Rollins. You know what I'm saying? It's like Rollins Band does.
Didn't you tell me?
I think I said that last week.
Didn't you tell me it sounded like a mashup between Henry Rollins and Weird Al?
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, every time I listen to it, it's just like, oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I'm here for it.
Well, and also here in the month of October, we have had Rob Perry, one of our Patreon co-executive producers, has basically set up his tent in the backyard of the 30-something movie podcast, has been camping out with us. So, Rob, good to have you back again.
Good to be here, and I still want my comforter.
Oh.
It's a little cold out in your backyard, John.
Yeah, I know.
That is.
Well, we have the fire pit out there, so the fire pit and the grill are out there, so you do whatever you want. Make yourself at home.
Much appreciated. Glad to be back once again. Got an interesting twofer that we're doing tonight. Not to pull the curtain back a little bit too much, but yeah, this is interesting because changed my mind about one and really reinforced my mind about another. So We'll see how it goes.
All right. And pulling back the curtain just a little bit, this is also, and I think, Pat, same for you, this is the first time I have watched either of the two movies that we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, same here.
So I think we are newbies to the ones that we're talking about tonight. The first one we're doing tonight is Wolf, starring Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer. This one, we're just going to jump right on into it. I don't think I've got too many other news pieces or anything like that, so we'll just jump right on in. We do spoil as we talk, so if we mention the name of a movie and you want to just skip ahead maybe 10, 20 seconds, we should get it out of our system at that point. And make sure you visit our website, 30podcast.com. Somebody at work was asking me about our podcast the other day, and they said, "Oh, I started listening." And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. What episode did you start listening to?" I think she had picked out a couple of the horror episodes. So I was like, well, okay.
Off
Pat,
air, you're going to have to let me know who, John. So I'm like, because everyone you come into contact to would be like a boss of mine. So I just, she's temper my statements.
No, she works in the district office. She's a boss, but she's not a boss of any of ours. Pat, I think you know Barb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Barb started listening to the podcast. Hi, Barb, if you're listening.
Hi.
But I did try to give her a heads up and say, well, we try to stay family friendly, but sometimes, just sometimes, we walk right up to the edge and kick our ball into somebody else's yard.
Yes.
We try to do it subtly when we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes painfully not so subtly, but so anyway. So our episode this time around is Wolf from 1994. This one came out in June 17th of 1994, rated R, with a runtime of 2 hours and 5 minutes, directed by Mike Nichols, who did The Graduate and Primary Colors. Writers were Jim Harrison and Wesley Strick. Harrison did Revenge and Legends of the Fall. Strick did Cape Fear and Arachnophobia. Producers were Douglas Wick and Neil A. Mackless. Let's see. Wick did Gladiator and Stuart Little. Well, that's two very different movies. And Mackless did Postcards from the Edge and Sabrina. Composer was Ennio Morricone, who did The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and The Untouchables. Cinematographer was Giuseppe Rotuno, who did All That Jazz and Amarcord. Editor was Sam Osteen, who did Chinatown and Cool Hand Luke. Production company is Columbia Pictures. Budget $70 million, box office $131 million. Flickmetrics gives it a 61%. Cinema Score gives it a B. Jack Nicholson played Will Randall. He was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and The Shining. Michelle Pfeiffer played Laura Alden. She was in Scarface and Batman Returns. James Spader was Stuart Swinton. He was in Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Pat, you love that one.
That was an outstanding movie, and I love everything about it.
Yeah. That is sarcasm. That is humor. I recognize that.
I'm trying to turn over a not yum yucker leaf, John. I'm trying to stay on top of that leaf.
You have opinions,
and
Pat.
Well, that movie,
you can absolutely share them.
And while that movie didn't quite agree with me,
mm-hmm.
I'm sure it agreed with a lot of other people. So who am I to judge?
Yeah. Let's see. Kate Nelligan was Charlotte Randall. She was in The Prince of Tides and Dracula. Richard Jenkins was Detective Bridger. He was in The Shape of Water and Step Brothers. Christopher Plummer was Raymond Alden. He was in The Sound of Music and All the Money in the World. Eileen Atkins was Mary. She was in Cold Mountain and Gosford Park. David Hyde Pierce was Roy. He was in A Bug's Life and Frasier. Ron Rifkin was the Doctor. He was in L.A. Confidential and Negotiator. Prunella Scales was Maud. She was in Howard's End and The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn. Puri was Dr. V.J. Alazis. He was in Gandhi and The Ghost in the Darkness, and Peter Garrity was George. He was in The Wire and Charlie Wilson's War. A couple of quick trivia things I've got here real quick, and then if you guys have any others, feel free to pop in. Jack Nicholson, apparently allergic to spirit gum, and he tried to let the makeup artist know that please don't use that. And Rick Baker, in fact, was special effects artist on this movie, and he said, I'm allergic to this. But this is one that is used regularly in movie makeup. When Baker accidentally used it, Nicholson came back the next day, and his face was all swolled up. And he said something like Ricky boy, you used spirit gum, didn't you? Yeah.
Almost exactly the quote, yes.
Is that what it is?
Well,
yeah.
Ricky boy.
And I can picture Jack Nicholson, well, Ricky boy. Yeah, I can just picture the whole thing. So obviously after that, they did not use the spirit gum anymore. One of the things that I thought would have been kind of a little strange, maybe had it actually happened, is related to a costume that they wanted Michelle Pfeiffer to wear at one point. Apparently they wanted her to wear a red hoodie at one point. And wait, are we pushing that this is a Little Red Riding Hood story? Or how much more obvious and on the nose do we want to make this? And really, it has nothing to do with the story. So why would you push that anyway?
That sounds like a decision that came from like upper management. You know what I'm saying?
It's somebody,
and I'm glad it got.
Yeah, somebody woke up that morning and chose violence is what they did.
Yes,
because that's yeah. Apparently, Jack Nicholson, big fan of the werewolf genre, and had been trying to get this movie made for over a decade, and had been working with a friend of his, the screenwriter Jim Harrison, and they've been trying to get this made for roughly 12 years. But my understanding is that Jack Nicholson actually likes, he really liked the old Wolfman movies and just was kind of a big fan of the genre, so he really wanted to get this made. Last one I've got here is James Spader. There was his stuntman actually did all of the stunts in this movie without any kind of wires or protection. So even when he's being thrown around, tossed all over the place, and Pat, I know you did a little bit of a deep dive a while ago on some stunt people. So yeah, it's kind of that's a bold choice to go without any wires or protection or anything like that.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. Now I know what I'm going to do deep dive after we finish this recording. I'm going to take a look at the stunt performances in Wolf.
There you go. I remember we did some movies not that long ago, and you kind of went down the rabbit hole of stunt people, and you found a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, just a lot of information. And it's funny, and I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a second, but it's funny because like so much of the movies that I tend to like are action oriented or like physical, I mean, well, I mean, I know like we're all sitting here. I like action movies. That's like saying, we breathe oxygen, but my point is, bringing those characters to life, what these stunt performers do physically, I think in many ways has as much to bring these characters to life as what the actors saying the lines, or do you get where I'm going with that? Like, I think that, and that was what my deep dive was like just processing like, oh, and the example I'll use is like, here's spoilers for the Avengers, or I should say for Iron Man 2, the stunt double, and I'm remiss in forgetting her name, but Scarlett Johansson's stunt double, when she was going down the hallway doing that incredible fight sequence, I mean, in my mind, looking back on it, that built that character up just as much as the way she could deliver those deadpan lines with, Robert Downey Jr. The way she could have those, like I said, trying to make a long story short, so much of that physical action brings these things to life too. And looking at this movie, watching the way that, these guys would jump around and move, like when they were all wolfed out, kind of helps paint that as much as like the makeup and the costuming does as well. So that's just my soapbox rant on the importance of stunt performers and the physical part of bringing these characters to life. So
yeah, absolutely. And Pat, the folks that are listening at home can't see this, but you've perfectly timed this for a Halloween episode. You seem to have your familiar behind you there.
Oh, really?
You have a
My
black,
familiar?
there's a black cat, or unless I'm seeing things, you have a black cat there with you.
Oh, really? Is Doodle right here? Can you see him?
I saw him a second ago. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's lurking.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
I was going to say the people listening are not going to be able to see that, but like you've done the work to provide the ambiance for the Halloween episodes.
I'm here for it, guys. It's October and I'm here for it.
All right. Rob, did you have any other trivia on this one that jumped out at you as you've watched this movie? And because it sounds like you've watched this a few times.
I have watched it a few times. Not really any trivia, but I remember when this movie came out, somehow it had entered my brain that they had recently done Dracula. They had recently done Frankenstein. And I thought that this movie was going to be a modern reimagining of the Wolfman. And part of me at the time was happy that it wasn't, because I love the original with Lon Chaney Jr. But upon revisiting, I'm a little flummoxed by how my reaction to seeing it this time around, as opposed to the last time I saw it, which had to be a good 10, 15 years ago.
Okay.
Different reaction this time around.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure why.
Okay. All right. I'll be curious to find out more. Yeah, I remember as a kid, because I grew up loving all the Universal monster movies, and I remember that too. As a kid, I was too young to have seen these movies when they came out in the theaters, but I did see Dracula not too long after. It was, by the time I was 13, I had seen Dracula. I definitely saw the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein movie, and then I remember seeing the previews for this one too, and I remember thinking the same thing. Like as a middle school kid, I was like, "Ooh, are they just going through and remaking all of the, like, are we going to get the Mummy? Are we going to get, Creature from the Black Lagoon? Are we going to get like Invisible Man? Are we getting all these again?" And so I remember being really excited about it, but I also feel like I remember, and we'll play the trailer audio for this one here in just a minute, but I also feel like I remember watching the previews for this one, and as a middle school kid thinking, wait a minute, did they turn this into a love story? Like I almost had the reaction of the kid from Princess Bride. Like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be the Wolfman. Is this a kissing movie? And I think that was kind of my initial reaction to seeing the trailer on TV, and I remember seeing the trailer for this one a lot on TV. Like they must have advertised the heck out of this, because I vividly remember when I was watching the trailer earlier, I vividly remember seeing that trailer several times. So I remember being excited as a kid, but then never actually going and watching this movie, because I think it was after I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, they've kind of turned it into a love story. I'm less interested in that. So I just never, it kind of was on my list of things to see eventually, but it just never over the years came back up again. So I was glad to have the chance to be able to see it this time. But yeah, it was definitely one I remember seeing advertised at the time, but did not interact with it until obviously about 30 years later. And then Pat, like you said, you had never seen this one before.
I have never seen this one before.
Okay.
I want to throw something in. I don't think I don't think this is trivia, but I believe I saw David Schwimmer as one of the police officers.
You did?
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this probably when they were making this movie might have been late '93, early '94. Friends, I believe, started in September of '94, so most likely he was probably filming this before they started filming Friends. So yeah, this is right before he would have hit the big time. Yeah, oddly enough, there were several. I noticed, and my wife and I, when we were watching this, we noticed several people who either were kind of hidden in the background or would become a little bit bigger actors. CJ from The West Wing, Allison Janney, was one of the party guests in the party scene.
Was she?
Yeah, okay. She was, when they first get to the party at the Alden mansion. She was one of the first people that you see, like first side character, kind of having a conversation with someone, and you almost just kind of see the side of her face. So she was in that scene, but yeah, to be able to see her, to see David Schwimmer, to see David Hyde Pierce, just a bunch of different people that you kind of from other places too. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
All right. In a world where power is everything, book editor Will Randall finds himself transformed after a wolf bite. But with his newfound strength comes a fierce battle for control against his protege Stuart, his boss's daughter Laura, and the beast within. Wolf, unleash the animal.
A wolf bit me. I don't think so, Will. You weren't there, Ralph.
Not all who are bitten change. There must be something wild within.
You've been sleeping all day. How do you feel?
I feel, good. It is Mexican Independence Day.
I never thought I'd meet a good man who looked at me the way you do.
You don't know I'm a good man.
Are you crazy?
No. I'm just marking my territory.
We got 5 new murders. What is there about a full moon?
There. Well, you seem pretty helpless now.
Yes.
Power without guilt. Love without doubt. It feels good to be a wolf.
Don't look so scared.
All right. We have broken the plot down into 10 major moments to kind of give you a quick fly through of the plot here. So 10 major moments for this one. Will Randall, editor-in-chief of a prestigious New York publishing house, runs over a black wolf on a Vermont road. So he heeded the call to stay off the moors, but he did not stay off the mountains, and that's what gets him in trouble this time. So when he tries to help the wolf, which my wife and I are sitting there watching this going, just get back in your car. Just get back in your car. This is one of these times where people deserve to die. Like, you leave the animal alone. Don't touch it. Don't poke it. If you're going to poke it once, don't poke it twice. Well, you poked it twice. Okay. Now you kind of deserve to be bitten. So the wolf does bite him, and that kind of is going to be the start of this transformation he's going to be going through over the course of the rest of the movie. The tycoon Raymond Alden announces his takeover of Will's publishing house, forcing Will to accept a demotion that he finds out about at a party. His protege, Stuart Swinton, is going to be taking over Will's previous role, betraying his mentor, basically, in the pursuit of power, although he tries to make it seem like he's a nice guy. And this is just, it's really killing him to, take his job like that. Tell me, tell me anything. I'll do anything. Resign tomorrow. Anything but that. And James Spader just plays that kind of slimy guy so well. You've seen him do this in several other movies, and he can start by seeming like a nice guy, and then he just kind of, he plays the sleazeball pretty well.
Here's the birth of Robert California.
Yes. Yeah. A delusioned Robert California goes on to work at a paper company.
Book publishing didn't work out, so go to where the sausage is made.
Right. Yeah. One thing I did want to back up real quick, and if I ever get the opportunity, still have not had the opportunity to go to Los Angeles yet. And at some point in my life, I want to go to Los Angeles, and I want to take some tours of locations where movies and TV shows and other things are filmed. And I want to go to the building where their office is, the Bradbury Building in Los Angeles. It is a historic landmark in Los Angeles. Shows up in movies like, what did I see? Blade Runner. It's the scene, J.F. Sebastian's apartment and the rooftop scene towards the end of the movie. A bunch of movies in the 40s and 50s. A bunch of other movies that came up even closer to today. Chinatown in 74, it was in that one. It obviously was in this one. It was in Lethal Weapon 4. It was in Pay It Forward, 500 Days of Summer. It's in, I believe, at least one episode of Quantum Leap. So, I mean, this is a pretty famous building, but it just looks so cool from the inside. It's like one of these old school buildings. Bradbury, and not Ray Bradbury, before anybody was like, Ray Bradbury built a building? Not Ray Bradbury. There was another Bradbury who was a millionaire in the 19th century, and he had it built in Los Angeles. But the inside of the building is just so cool. It's got those old school elevators where you got to slide the door shut, and it's like basically in a cage. And it's such a cool looking building. So if I ever get that opportunity to get to Los Angeles and check out some sites of filming locations for movies, I definitely want to hit up the Bradbury Building because it's just such a cool location.
Cool. That's where you're going.
That is one of the places I'm going. I'm definitely going to Griffith Observatory so I can check out the spots where they film some of the Rocketeer scenes, among many other things. But yeah, I've got
Rock-a-who?
If you don't read the papers, I can't help you at this point. But yes, I have a list of places I want to check out if I ever get a chance to get to Los Angeles. We notice that Will's senses start to sharpen, and he is smelling the raging alcoholics that apparently he works with. Apparently everybody in this movie. And he starts to smell that, somebody had a little tequila that morning, and other senses are starting to get heightened. He can see now without having his glasses on. He's just a little bit, everything's a little bit more alive for him, which is kind of funny because I really noticed, and especially having not seen this movie before, I noticed early on in the early scenes, I was like, man, Jack Nicholson, he's not like crazy old at this point in his career, but he's just so slow in the first maybe 15 minutes of this movie. He's talking slow. He's moving slow. And then after about 10 minutes of that, I'm like, I wonder if that's a conscious choice, because I wonder if he's doing this now to be slow and dull. And then when it comes time for him to start to transform more, he's going to be more active. He's going to be more lively. And sure enough, that's exactly what it was. So, nice performance on his part to do that kind of, because at first I'm like, man, I feel like this movie's going to be boring because it's just like plodding along, and it's just, oh, is this how the whole thing is going to be? But then when you find out, obviously, that he was probably doing that, willfully to be able to show the difference between, pre-Wolf Jack and post-Wolf Jack. But Wolfman Jack, Should we call him
I was
Wolfman
going to
Jack?
say you just got to go for it. It's Wolfman Jack.
Okay, so from the rest of our episode, he's now Wolfman Jack.
Yep.
Let's see. As his senses sharpen, he ends up smelling Swinton's scent on his wife's clothing. Bad news there. His fears are confirmed when he actually goes to Swinton's apartment and catches them together in a scene where I don't know how I feel about him bounding up the stairs. It looked a little, I mean, part of it I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then the other part of me was like, nah, that looks a little goofy. And I think even my wife commented, she's like, yeah, it was a little weird to think of Jack Nicholson bounding up the stairs like that.
That was something that stuck out at me as well, because it's fairly early on in the film, and then you don't see that for a long time.
Yeah, almost until the end.
It's like, why did they show that, and then we don't see any of that energy? It's certainly not that type of energy for a long time.
Yeah. And so he does catch them together at Swinton's apartment, and in a fit of rage, he ends up biting Swinton's hand. And those of us who have seen these things before, that is kind of a giant red flag, and we know what's going to be happening here. Wolfman Jack forms a bond with Raymond Alden's headstrong daughter, Laura, and begins a romantic relationship with her. After a bit of a fainting spell, he kind of awakens in a transformed state, and in probably one of the most brutal scenes in the movie, kills a deer, starts to devour it and snaps its neck, and that's when he is going to wake up after this and kind of realize, especially when he's covered in blood, that some of these animal instincts are starting to take him over. He is able to track down this expert, this doctor, who may be an expert in whatever it is that's happening to him. Animal possession is what he's searching for. And Wolfman Jack is transforming into a wolf. He learns that this can happen maybe from a bite, maybe just because the wolf is already in you and it's trying to come out. The doctor does give Wolfman Jack an amulet to delay the full transformation, but that it may be very difficult, if not impossible, to reverse this completely. During a transformation, Wolfman Jack sneaks into a zoo, steals some handcuffs from a police officer, and attacks a group of muggers. He wakes up the next morning with no memory of the events, slowly kind of coming to terms with the fact that something is happening to him that he can't fully understand and can't seem to stop. At this point, he is much more. His vitality is up to 110% at this point. And he's come to work and he's gangbusters. He is organizing a mutiny of writers, threatening to leave the firm unless he remains the editor-in-chief, or they're going to break off and they're going to kind of make their own publishing house. And so he really kind of pushes Alden to agree. And he's like, look, you got to give me my job back. I want more money. I want more authority. I want to be able to fire Stewart. Give me all these things, and that's pretty much it. Just give me all these things. And Alden is basically like, hey, you know what? You're a real go-getter. So sure, I don't know anything about publishing, so sure, go ahead. And this scene, he goes to the bathroom, and I knew that this had to have been in the trailer, and we were listening to the trailer just a few minutes ago, because I vividly, having not ever seen this movie, they're in the bathroom, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, he's going to turn, he's going to pee on his shoes, and he's going to tell him that he's marking his territory. Like, I know this for a fact, and I haven't seen anything related to this movie in 30 years, but I very clearly must have remembered that from the trailer, because that's exactly what happened. And it is kind of a funny line. Like, the moment it's happening, I'm like, oh yeah, there's Wolfman Jack. So he does. He's basically like, you crazy? I'm marking my territory, and just a great scene, which then turns into a bit of an unnerving scene, because then when he goes to wash his hands, which, by the way, Stuart, you got to wash your hands, buddy. That's gross. You don't leave the bathroom without washing your hands.
Yeah.
That, I believe, is why Stuart turned into an evil wolf. I think you can still be a good wolf, but if you don't take care of hygiene, you turn into a bad wolf. When he goes to wash his hands, reaches into his pocket and pulls out a couple of fingers. Because
Oh,
as you
I
do.
hate it when that happens.
I know it's rough every single time, and you don't know whose fingers they are, and I don't know.
You want to,
yeah.
you want a finger, dude? I can get you a finger. I can
Well,
get you a finger, dude.
Right. I
Just
mean, I don't want to point the finger at anybody, but
phrasing, gentlemen.
I was gonna point that out to Pat, but I was just gonna let him run with it because it was kind of funny. So
I'm back. You may commence, sir.
good. Well, thank you. Then, after spending the night with Laura, he learns from Detective Bridger that his wife Charlotte was found dead in Central Park with canine DNA on her body, raising the terrifying possibility that she never should have become a dog walker. But on the other case, terrifying possibility that he could have killed her. Because at this point, he does not know, and I think unless you've watched a werewolf type movie or a lycanthropy type movie before, maybe other people don't necessarily know that good old Stuart Little over there is about to transform into something too. And at this point, I think pretty much everybody figures that, he and his wife had an argument, so he must have gone out and he must have killed her. So now he's feeling the guilt of that, and now they're panicking that the police are going to discover and come after him. Laura locks Will in a horse stable back at her father's mansion to prevent him from transforming again, but she goes back to the police station, encounters Swinton, who is now also starting to show signs of being a werewolf. He's, smelling people in weird ways and, all kinds of weird, creepy stuff. You can kind of see his eyes are looking a little yellow and a little different. So he's either a werewolf or a Sith Lord. And Will is back in his cage, and he throws the amulet and, just kind of, or tries to take the amulet off, and you can tell he's really struggling with trying to fight this transformation. Swinton actually follows Laura back to the Alden estate, where this last part of the movie, just a brutal fight takes place between the two. First of all, he's about to attack and assault Laura, and that kind of enrages Wolfman Jack enough that he breaks out of his cage. He's able to get free, and then they start trying to tear each other apart at this point. And then eventually, Laura ends up killing Swinton, and Wolfman Jack, now in kind of has half human, half wolf form. 'Twas beauty that killed the beast. And he starts to kind of show that he still has a little bit of his human personality left, and they have a bit of a tender moment before he runs off into the woods to join his wolf pack brothers and sisters. And as he transforms fully into a wolf, we get a scene where Laura at the end is talking with the cops, and her dad is there, and she's trying to cover up some of this stuff, and she makes a comment that allows us at the end to realize that she is probably going to start to transform as well, because she makes a comment about the I think it was Detective Bridger, maybe you might want to lay off the drink a little bit because I can smell you from a mile away. It's almost the same lines that Wolfman Jack spoke earlier in the movie. And then you see at the very end, her eyes as well start to look a little bit more werewolfish at the end. So that is the end of the movie. That is the end of our major moments. And now it's time for some deep thoughts.
And now, deep thoughts.
All right. So, thoughts and opinions on Wolf. Patrick, what did you think of Wolf?
This is a great film. I loved it. I'm there for it. I think Jack Nicholson was absolutely chomping the scenery in all the good ways. I mean, I really enjoyed the movie. I mean, what you talked about when he was like, it's like, yeah, why are you doing that? Why'd you run? Oh man. Oh, now you're going to now you got bit. Like, and what I loved is not that there wasn't any mystery to it, but I like, if it was in fact a reimagining of the old Wolfman movies that you were talking about, and when I came at this movie now and then when it first came out, like I really didn't watch much of much of the monster movies. I mean, I had a passing understanding of it, And so in my mind, when I saw the trailer, it was like kind of, oh, a modern take on this horror stuff. Okay. And then in watching it, it kind of confirmed like, okay, this is kind of like a different way of looking at the wolf. I love watching Jack Nicholson do this. Like just the way, I mean, it was like a combination of the way he played Jack Napier, combination of the way he played, I can't think of the guy's name, but from The Departed, it like all his characters, he just drew those and brought so much out of this character, like the way he was just the absolute shark in getting that business deal done to where he had the advantage and he could fire the guy that messed him up. The way that just totally perfectly calmly, the guy's yelling at him in the bathroom, so he just turns and pees on his leg. And just the way he does it. And that's what I love about Jack Nicholson's characters is it's like he can be playing someone that's like completely crazy, and depending on the movie, like either a homicidal maniac or just this crazy, but he does it by being completely calm. And that makes it even crazier. So when he brought that element to this character, I just enjoyed it. Like I cannot tell you, I can't say it enough. I just enjoyed this movie. And I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Dreamweaver.
I believe you can get me through the night.
We play that whenever Pat needs
And
a moment.
I know, yeah, and I know looking at the age discrepancy, especially now looking back, it's slightly problematic. But I mean, I think that was part of the writing of it. I think that was part of it. So I totally bought into that whole thing. And I thought the wolf fight at the end was like super fun. I really had fun watching that whole deal. James Spader was great in it. All the other characters that they had to play the different roles, like the police, like the thing, I thought that was great. And I don't know, the movie kind of had a happy ending, and I'm kind of a sucker for happy endings. So I don't know, I enjoyed it all the way throughout, and I definitely watch it again. And if nothing else, then just to watch Jack Nicholson just absolutely make this movie so entertaining to watch. I just could not enjoy him enough.
I did at one point when he walked into the mansion, I did want him to look around and just say something like, "Nice place. Lots of space."
Yeah, I know.
There was a couple of things here and there I was maybe hoping for, but
yeah.
Okay. All right. For me, let's see. I enjoyed it because I do enjoy any kind of movie that features any kind of monsters at all, whether they be werewolves, vampires, giant fish men, whatever you want to do. I'm pretty much here for it if you've got monsters for me. I think what I would have liked to have seen in this movie was maybe a little bit more of a transformation. I would have loved to have seen him progress more than just, chops on the side of his face. Other than needing a barber, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more Wolfman Jack, and just see that progress throughout the movie. And Rob, I think to your point, the scene where and maybe it's adrenaline because he's upset and he's found out that his wife is cheating on him, but I would have liked to have seen more of a progression of getting to the point where, I mean, if he's going to bound up the stairs like that, cool. Then let's see that in other places kind of from this point on in the movie. Let's not have it just be like a one-off thing. I want to see that progression of, okay, well now he's got more energy. He's got more life. He's got more youthfulness and vim and vigor and all these things. And he is, I would like to have seen him even maybe during the daytime, just transforming a little bit more physically. Now he does at certain points as the movie goes on, I think whether through makeup or whatever, he does look younger and he does look more full of life as the movie does go on. I think I would have liked to have seen, definitely by the end of the movie, I would have liked to have seen more of a, being more wolf than man, kind of towards the end of the movie, and not just an animatronic wolf head that is howling at the moon. So I would have liked to, in terms of my enjoyment of monster movies. I think I would have liked to have seen that. One of the things, and this didn't bother me several years ago, but I think it kind of bothers me now, is, and I don't want to single out like the 90s or even the mid 90s for this, but, and Rob, I might be going the same place you might be going. So we'll see if you and I are in the same place here. The younger women dating the older men in all these movies in like the early to mid 90s and even a little bit later, but like, really? Like Helen Hunt and Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson, and like some of that, like we seem to have this obsession, at least in this time period, of having a lot of movies where it's a much younger woman, much older man. I don't know. There was something about that bumped on me just a little bit this time around. It doesn't typically bother. I've seen As Good as It Gets. I like that movie, but it didn't seem to bother me too much then. It didn't really bother me much now, but it was enough that I was like, yeah. I don't know that I see a whole lot of chemistry here. Like I'm sure they're trying. I'm sure they're trying, but I'm not picking up on the chemistry between these two characters, and I'm having a hard time, picturing this, May, February of next year romance. So.
Yeah, you're having a hard time with Joker and a Catwoman finally getting together.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, that was a little. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got flashes of it in the old Batman 66 movie when Joker and Catwoman were together on the same team, but Miss Kitka. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it overall. There were a few times where I think some of the how did my wife put it? He looks silly when he runs, I think is how she put it. Like when you see Jack Nicholson running through the forest, she's like, he just kind of looks funny, like when he's running. So I don't know if it would have helped for them if they were going to use a stunt double that maybe had a slightly more wolfish athletic run to him. Maybe that would have helped a little bit. There are times where when he was kind of creeping around, I thought he did a nice job of making himself try to look like a wolf that was stalking his prey and things like that. But there were a couple little moments here and there that made it a little tougher for me to take the movie seriously. But then again, it's a movie about a guy turning into a wolf. So how seriously do you want to take it in the first place? So overall, enjoyed it. There were just a couple little things I would have liked more from a few parts in this. I would have liked more. I would have liked to have seen James Spader more, especially as he starts to turn into the wolf and to be the villain. I would have liked to have seen more of that too. I thought the fight at the end was great. I thought that part was good. Didn't have any issues with that. There was a couple times I was like, you know what, I could have done with just a little bit more here. Give me a little bit more of this character. Give me a little bit more of this. Otherwise, yeah, I was entertained. I enjoyed it. Rob, what about you? You're the one that's seen this multiple times, and you said this time was a little different than some of your other viewings.
Yes, my opinion changed in different ways. I do enjoy this movie. I will say this. Perfect casting. Everybody is perfectly cast. Jack Nicholson, give him anything to do, and I'm there for it. Michelle Pfeiffer, I mean, they probably just cast her. It was like, we want to have a woman with alluring eyes, and she has the most alluring set of eyes that I can think of. Christopher Plummer, always good as the stick in the mud, and James Spader just plays the perfect jerk in whatever he does. If you need a jerk, you have him, and I could see, having seen his career. I mean, I think the only other thing at this point I had seen him in was Stargate.
Okay.
And then, saw him in a couple of independent movies. He's great in David Cronenberg's Crash. If you ever get around to checking that out, he's excellent in that. And I saw him in that probably a year or two later. Yeah, I think that was 97. And then, of course, he's great on The Office as his turn as Robert California. But he's always really just got this air of I don't like that guy. Even when he's trying to be charming, you're just like, I just don't like him. And that just points out how great of an actor he is. All that said, I think this movie had the absolute wrong director. I do think that Mike Nichols has done, like you said, The Graduate is a phenomenally great film. It is a classic. Everybody loves that movie. But it is a different type of movie. I mean, it seems like he got on board and let's have a little bit of horror in the beginning, tiny bit of horror in the middle, and big fight at the end. And then let's just watch these people go through their relationships, which would have been fine. But you don't front load a movie with a guy getting bit by a wolf and then immediately start showing him transform, and then stop all of that for the most part to get into this drama about his company being taken over and about his relationships being ruined and finding a new relationship with a younger woman while his wife is stepping out on their marriage. It just meanders a little too much when you've already introduced, hey, this is going to be a horror movie. Yeah, maybe. Maybe for a few minutes. So I felt it was really uneven, and that's what hit me harder this time. I loved all the performances. Jack Nicholson, again, just give him a dictionary, say read, and I'm there for it. Michelle Pfeiffer was fine. I found her character a little bit more not well developed. And that's a poor choice of words when you talk about Michelle Pfeiffer. But her character, it just felt like, oh, I was a bad kid because my dad was rich and didn't pay attention to me. So that's how I know these things. So I'm also tough. So accept that. It would have been better to see their relationship develop a little bit better and have him learn, have her show up and get him out of his hallucinations that he thought he was having, or those incidents where she like sees him leave in the middle of the night after they have had their hookup and sees him attack the muggers. And then, the only time she sees him as his other self is at the end. But the whole time she's starting to suspect it. If they would have had that one scene where she, like, after he attacks the muggers, and then she comes upon him as he's turning back into human form, and she's like, "Oh, I believe you now." And because it's like all of a sudden, after James Spader approaches her in the police station, she's like, "Oh, I've got to get us both out of town," because he's framing Stewart for the murder of his Stewart is framing him for the murder of his wife. It was like almost a too quick realization, and she's called in the plane tickets and everything. It was just so quick, and there was just, like you said, there was definitely stuff missing here. Again, I think the story could have used somebody to come in and say, let's punch this up a little, let's move some things along. I think even back when I first saw this, I think this movie is just about 15-20 minutes too long. I think a lot of things could have been tightened up. Again, because there is no wait for Jack Nicholson to get bitten and start turning. There, right. You're there in the first 10 minutes. And so I do enjoy this, but a lot of those warts started to really show themselves this most recent time around.
Yeah, part of it for me too was almost surprising that they didn't Clark Kent this longer than I would have expected. Like, he right away, he's like, well, by the way, I got bit by a wolf and I think I'm turning into one. Like, that is probably maybe not even halfway through the movie that he kind of reveals that. So you're spending the entire probably second half of the movie at least, where she is, whether she believes him or not, she's at least been told whatever his quote unquote secret is. And so, yeah, to your point, I think I would have liked to have seen her have to deal with that more than just, well, is he? I mean, is he crazy? Is it? To your point, I would have liked to have her had to see some things, like see some evidence of this, He comes over to her house and all she's got is peanut butter and jelly. And then he walks in like a day later with, chicken fingers. And I would have liked to have seen those fingers in your pocket. Or are you just happy to see me? I would have liked to have seen her have to deal with some of that stuff a little bit more openly than just man, I kind of like this guy, but he might be kind of crazy. That I think would have been helpful. And to your other point, I think in watching this, I had the thought that, well, when I was a kid and I remember seeing the trailer of this, I thought, ooh, horror movie. And then, ooh, romance movie. And watching it now, like watching the whole thing through, I'm like, oh, horror movie, no. Oh, romance movie, well, no. What are you? I'm like, there's not that you have to have, not that you have to have love scenes or things like that in order for it to be a romance movie, but it's kind of like this would be like if Hitchcock, showed the train getting about a mile away from the tunnel, and then all of a sudden we cut to another scene.
If you look at this from more of a satirical eye, it works a lot better.
Okay.
Because if you look at this as a movie of a man feeling used up, unloved, and time has passed him by, and everybody is out to get him, and he finally finds a way to grow a spine, and he's going to get everybody back to where they belong in his eyes.
Yeah.
So he's going to put his new boss in his place. He's going to put his backstabbing protege in his place. Kind of puts his wife in her place after running out on him, but she winds up being killed by the guy she stepped out on him with. And then you find Michelle Pfeiffer and say, "Yeah, this is my new life." So it's kind of like a kind of sounds like it was written by a guy who was going through some midlife crisis stuff, maybe. Mm-hmm. So, but having been through a couple of company takeovers, there's a little fantasy here that I can get behind, but at the same time, I would have liked if they found a tone, because this one, it starts out as a very solid horror movie, and then just kind of drifts into a bit of a drama about real life, and then dips its toe back into horror, and then it becomes a romance, and then it's kind of all wonky at the end.
Yeah. You know what I would have, in watching this movie, and especially some of the scenes in particular with Michelle Pfeiffer, the thought that kept running through my head was every time I'd see her come on screen, I was like, I really feel like you've just cast people who would look really good as wolves. Jack Nicholson, obviously facial features, he definitely could look like a human wolf. And then I'm looking at Michelle Pfeiffer this, and I'm like, she has very almost feline features to her face. And I couldn't help but think, man, if they were going to do a remake of Cat People again, let's have Michelle Pfeiffer be in Cat People. Like, I could totally see, even today, if they wanted to do a remake of Cat People, I could totally see her. Just her facial features made me think of that so much as I was watching this. I'm like, well, I know they've already done one, in the mid 80s at this point, but.
And I couldn't help but think of Lady Hawk.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Now that I had not seen Lady Hawk at this point in time when I first saw Wolf.
Okay. Yeah.
But now I can't help but think about it.
Yeah.
That her and Jack Nicholson are going to just be night and day. Can't see each other for the rest of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like your take on that. That it's much more of a story about a man who has kind of passed his prime and is able to regain his prime through this unfortunate wolf bite and everything that's going to come after that. I think had they punched it up to be more of that kind of a story. And I mean, you get bits and pieces of that, but I think it just needed to be a little bit more, lean into that a little bit more. But I like that take on it. So, yeah. Anything else we want to say about this one?
times. So,
Oh, was he? Okay.
yeah,
There we go. I think we lost it for a couple seconds.
lost you.
Lost you guys. Yep. All right, I'm back.
Oh no, John's
right.
got to edit. John has to edit.
Well, it's interesting
Maybe
hearing
I'm
you guys break it down and all that, because like for the being the first time watch for myself, and I know it's John, it's your first time, but I mean, I think obviously, like we've said ad nauseum, that this is a newer genre for me. It really did seem to be exactly what you said, where it seemed to be more from the human perspective, and the whole wolf transformation was almost like an aside, right? Or not an aside, but like a parallel story, or it was like something going on that was the vehicle for the exploration of the human characters, right? And so it's and that's, I found it kind of surprising, but I'm like, man, when I was watching this, I thought this was going to be more of a horror movie. Like, it really just seems to be, and I don't mean to say just, but I mean, it just seems to be kind of like you said, a story about businesses take over relationships and all that. And the whole wolf thing just adds a little sprinkling of the supernatural in there. I do find it interesting that like this and Teen Wolf are the two wolf-ish type movies that, I've seen in recent times, or that I remember. And in both cases, like the wolf thing ends up being like the superpower, like you know what I'm saying? It's like the helpful thing, it's like, okay, I need to fight this. I need to fight the bad guy. I can wolf out and pull on my powers. Okay, I need to set the world right and deal with these people at work. Okay, well, my wolf powers tell me that this guy's an alcoholic, and this guy's a this, and this guy's a that. And so for some reason, it seems like the wolf powers are a benefit, right?
I'm assuming you have never seen An American Werewolf in London.
Wait a minute. Yes, John, that's spoilers.
Did I make you guys watch that for one of our episodes?
Is that the one that ends with Blue Moon?
Yes.
Yes, I've seen that movie.
Okay.
Greatest ending to a movie in all of creation.
Yeah.
Okay. That one and The Howling are probably what they were trying to go for with this.
Okay.
Because American Werewolf in London and The Howling are funny movies.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at them with the right gaze, they are funny movies. I mean, especially American Werewolf in London. You have John Landis directing that. That is a very funny movie in a very warped sense of humor. I think that that's kind of what they were trying to go for with this, trying to mesh a little bit of humor and a little bit of modern sensibilities and the classic werewolf tale. For me, it's something got lost somewhere, and it just doesn't quite gel as well as I would hope. Again, amazing cast. I just think that somebody should have come in and just punched up just a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to call you Meatloaf, Jack. That's probably one of my favorite lines from American Werewolf. Because while he's transforming, and I guess he's assuming that he's being caused this pain because he calls his friend Jack a walking meatloaf, and he starts to like have this horrible pain and starts to transform, and it's almost like I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you a meatloaf. Oh.
And again, special effects done by the same guy, and as you said, John, you have Rick Baker. And there's really not a good transformation scene.
Right. You've totally wasted.
It's almost like it's almost like Rick Baker was asked to do it and he was like, "Oh, but I've already done it."
Right.
So yeah, it was, and maybe that could have been a problem with Jack Nicholson's allergy to the spirit, because I read that same thing that you did. And maybe they were limited with how much and maybe the director was like, well, I don't want to go too animalistic with these guys. Sure. And I want them to hold on their humanity. I honestly have no idea, but it really did just feel like, like the one time when I was in fourth grade and I dressed like a werewolf with one of those living nightmare kits where they just my dad plastered a bunch of hair all over my head. It looked really good, but it still looked like a guy with a bunch of hair plastered to my head. So
yeah, that was kind of something that was, again, to pull back the curtain, that we're recording both of these in the same night, but the two movies that we're looking at, you have Rick Baker in this one, and you really don't take advantage of Rick Baker. And then in the other movie we're talking about, I believe Greg Nicotero was one of the
K&B. Yeah.
And you got some awesome stuff going on in that one. So you get kind of like full, you get the full effect with Nicotero, but it's, just to have Rick Baker, to not use him in the way you could, it just seems like a completely missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Do you guys, anything else you want to say about this one before we transform into 3 questions?
I love the line where she's like, and you didn't even, when she hangs up on him, and it was like, did you even think to let me know, or something like that? And he says, so sorry. It's like perfect delivery. He goes, yes. What did he say? Did you even think of the consequences or something like that? And he goes, yes. I thought maybe it wasn't a good idea to wake you up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the way he delivers it, I just love it, because like without him saying that line, you're kind of like, oh yeah, he kind of ticked her off. He kind of left her high and dry, and she really wants to be involved and all that. And it's like, did you even consider the consequences? And just the way he delivers the line. Yeah, I did. And I thought waking you up at 6 o'clock in the morning, bleeding and in need of help, is not the best idea. And it's just like, oh yeah, he's got a point too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the way he delivers those lines. It's the same as I think of a man and I take away reason and accountability.
Yep.
It's just, there is no answer for it, because it's just, it's, it was fun watching him do his thing.
Yeah. All right. It's time for 3 questions.
He asks each traveler 5 questions.
3 questions.
Well, were they cycles? Or?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Quid pro quo. I tell you things, you tell me things.
I'm not interrupting anything, am I? You look deep in thought.
So I'll ask you the questions and then we'll see, all right?
Not related to the 3 questions, but I saw you sitting there. Were you looking at a CD?
I am looking at a CD, John.
Okay, all right. So we went to like a community concert thing the other night, and the guy was a piano player, but he was doing like classical and rock and roll mashups.
Fun.
With his piano playing, and he had a drummer that was with him too. Did a great version of Paint It Black and House of the Rising Sun, and clearly this guy has watched Westworld, because he's playing a bunch of the songs that Westworld also covered. But he did a couple of times where he actually played the piano kind of like backwards and upside down, like he was showing what he had learned to do as a high school kid. And so it was Billy Joel's Root Beer Rag, and he was playing it like upside down on the piano. And a little bit later, he didn't do it in a way that would have allowed me to do this, but he's like, okay, you guys as the audience, you're going to help me write a song. So give me some notes. Give me some notes that I can play. And then he took a bunch of random notes, turned it into a song. I was really hoping he was going to ask for requests, and I was going to be the one person to yell out, "Play Salieri." It would have been so much fun I feel like he would have gotten the joke too. Like he seemed like he knew a lot of movies and pop culture stuff.
Oh man,
I think he would have gotten it. All right.
Sounds like a fantastic show.
It was awesome. Did a great job with it. All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite kind of peanut butter?
Choose your Robs, choose Jeff.
There you go.
And I prefer crunchy, but my wife doesn't, so I have to compromise.
All right.
We seem to be getting a lot of the Skippy natural in our place. I agree with Rob. I love the crunchy. but sometimes there's sometimes I like the crunchy, but then there's sometimes I like the smooth. You know what I'm or the creamy, I should say.
There's a
Like
time and a place for both.
Yeah, it depends on the application.
I'm gonna go a little bit further off the beaten path, and I'm gonna say that my favorite peanut butter that I've ever had is a jar of Amish peanut butter that I got from Shipshewana, Indiana.
Oh,
best peanut butter I've ever had. So good.
Wow.
It wasn't crunchy. It was a smooth, so that was okay. But crunchy, love crunchy peanut butter most times. But this one, just I don't know. It was very natural tasting. It was very good. It was awesome. So if I ever get back to Amish country that sells peanut butter, I probably will have to pick that up again. That's the same trip I went on that I've mentioned before that has the best blueberry pie I've ever had in my whole life. I think I've mentioned that before too. Whenever we've had a pie question on the podcast.
John, it just so happens that I will be going to Shipshewana, Indiana.
Will you really?
In the next couple of months.
Oh.
And I might be taking that trip once a year for the next couple of years. So if you send me a list of items to pick up, I will procure them for us and return them to the pod.
I'll see if I can find it. I'll check out their Amazon page.
You said us. Does that include?
Yeah.
Okay.
That includes anybody on the pod, man. That's like, you know what I'm saying? The dude abides.
There you go.
We got peanut butter and pies that have been mentioned, and I'm actually really jealous. So
yeah, I think there's an Indiana road trip in the future.
It has, yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, question number 2. What is your favorite movie where a person transforms into an animal?
I have to say The Fly, if that counts.
That
Jeff
absolutely
Goldblum.
Counts. Yep. That absolutely counts. Love me some good body horror. Which we'll be talking more about next week.
Mm-hmm. John, what do you have? What do you got going on?
I have, maybe the obvious horror-based answer to this one would be American Werewolf in London, but that is not the one I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the one that I absolutely loved as a kid, and we watched it with the family just maybe a couple years ago, and it was still just as much fun as I remember it being when I watched it as a kid. I'm going to go with Disney's 1959 The Shaggy Dog. I love that movie growing up as a kid. We watched that. I had it recorded off of TV, and I think we ran that VHS into the ground.
That's Fred McMurray, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I love that one. I don't know. I feel like I might have tried to watch one of the remakes they did, but no. Stick with the black and white original.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, I have a guess as to what one of your answers might be, but I'll let you go.
I've got multiple. What were you going to say?
I was going to guess you were going to say one of the Harry Potter movies.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm down with that. I think it's cool to be able to, would be cool to be able to transform into an animal at will. Like, okay, spoilers for Harry Potter, anybody that hasn't read it or watched it okay, there you go. Okay. But like, I love the whole Animagus, plot or subplot that happens in those movies. And, yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, as I mentioned earlier, favorite transformation scene in a movie is American Werewolf in London. Like that whole scene where he transforms into the wolf for the first time.
Oh, yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And question number 3, what is your favorite Michelle Pfeiffer role?
Catwoman.
Okay.
Daily double. Oh, John, you're nodding too. Is this a daily triple?
No, actually, for me, I might go. When I asked my family this, which I don't think my daughter has really seen enough Michelle Pfeiffer movies to be able to answer, my response to them was, okay, favorite Michelle Pfeiffer role. Anybody who says Grease 2, you're not having dinner tonight. No, my answer might be there was a movie that my wife and I used to watch over and over and over again, and it's not even all of these people's best movie, but for some reason we really enjoyed it. We used to watch The Story of Us, And that's with her and Bruce Willis are married in that movie. And it's basically, the movie is about their relationship, and their relationship goes through some stuff. And what's funny is we used to watch it over and over and over again. And then we got married. And, you know, sometimes in your marriage, things don't always go smoothly. And so it kind of got to the point where we're like, I don't want to watch that movie anymore, because I don't want to watch a couple of people argue all the time. And so it has probably been, I think we tried to watch it not that long ago, or maybe a few years ago now. And we're like, I don't know if I can. I mean, we really like this movie. It was like one of our favorite movies, but we have not been able to watch it for like the last 20 years or so. But that one, and I really did enjoy her too. I always like some of her comedic stuff, and I really enjoyed her in One Fine Day with George Clooney. It is kind of like a movie where anything that can go wrong does go wrong, kind of a situation.
Sure.
And really enjoy her in that one too. Yeah, it's kind of hard to narrow it down, because then I think about Frankie and Johnny, and that's a great one. And, and she's great in Scarface. And so I'm going to pick
Witches of Eastwick.
Yeah.
Also with Jack Nicholson.
Yep. So I'm going to go Story of Us, just because traditionally that was like one of our favorite movies, and probably the movie of hers that I have seen the most out of all of them.
Sure.
So, all right. And you guys were the daily double on Catwoman? You both said Catwoman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
She's pretty awesome in that.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been Wolf. We've gone. You've got your options when it comes to Wolf movies. You could watch Teen Wolf. You could watch Geriatric Wolf. You have several different options available to you. But this one, fun one. I think consensus may have been that if they just punched up a couple little things here and there, it would have even been a little bit better. But definitely, anytime you put Jack Nicholson on camera and give him anything to say, you're probably going to have a fun time. So. It's a wonderful, wonderful Jack Nicholson movie. A lot of fun. We are in the month of October. This is our horror month. Our Patreon this month is Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 74. We've got a couple of Patreon shorts, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, and Joker Folie à Deux, which is a weird sequel to Hot Shots, but I don't know. We'll talk more about that. And then this month we have had De la Morte de l'Amor, or Cemetery Man, depending on what you want to call it. Interview with the Vampire, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This time we talked about Wolf, and we're going to finish out the month in the Mouth of Madness. You know what I should have called Horror Month, October this time? I should have called it In the Month of Madness. Like, had I been thinking about it, I should have done that.
Missed opportunity, man.
Can I retroactively change it? I
can
do whatever I want.
October yet. Wait a minute. I'm in a time machine. I can just go back early and warn them.
When will October be now? Okay, so Pat, don't forget to put the keys to the handcuffs over here, and then make sure you put that garbage pail on top of the thing over here, and then make sure that
trash can.
Make sure that you get the trash can, and then make sure that you put the right name for the month in the Google spreadsheet when you go back in time.
Well, do you remember?
And drop off all the Infinity Stones before you're done.
All of this can be done. It's just a matter of working with checklists. Wasn't there a time, wasn't it just last year, there was a bunch of action movies and you called it Be All That You Can Be month?
I think so.
But there weren't any army movies.
Yeah.
And I possibly borderline called you out. You became angry with me, almost kicked me off the show. But then you renamed the month. I think you can rename it. I think you can own this.
I can do this?
I don't, Rob. I mean, what do you think? I don't.
It's not my show, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting there right now in the month of madness.
When will October be now?
Soon.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. We'll rename it. It's not Horror Month. It's In the Month of Madness. I like it.
Month of Madness. Yeah.
Month of Madness. I'm good with that. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, as always, for being here. Always enjoy talking movies. This was a fun one, and we'll come back here next week. And Rob, I think you'll be back here with us again next week.
I will indeed.
All right. We'll finish off In the Month of Madness with In the Mouth of Madness, and the final part of John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy.
For blood to flow. Ghosts and ghouls, you know what we mean. But all the terror that makes you scream. Some movies creep, some make you leap. There's killer plants or blobs. We cover them all on your favorite pod. So many horrors we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Because the call is coming from inside the room. Life ends pretty fast. Some screams fade, but some chills will last. The killers stalk and then they slash. It's the 30-something movie podcast. The clock rings out the midnight chimes. We all go a little mad sometimes. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep. And if you're in space, then get hit.